Hello there, my sleepy fellows. Tonight, I invite you to step into a quieter side of the magical world, one not filled with spell duels or flying broomsticks, but something softer, gentler. A place where leaves glow faintly in the moonlight, glass panes fog up from the warmth within, and magic hums not in spells, but in roots, petals, and the slow rhythm of nature. This is a story of a quiet greenhouse nestled near the edge of Hogwarts, a place that many pass by during the day without thinking, but that comes alive with a different kind of wonder when the sun sets. It's a tale of whispers in the leaves, secrets blooming in the soil, and a magical plant that, one quiet night, decided it had something to say. If you find peace in stories filled with soft glows, gentle mysteries, and the warm hush of magical places at rest, then you're in just the right spot. Let the day fall away now. You've arrived at the edge of something calming, something green, something wondrous. And if you enjoy cozy journeys like this, where Hogwarts feels cloaked and safe, and magic gently wraps around your heart like a warm scarf, you're most welcome to like, subscribe, or share this tale with someone who loves drifting into dreams beside candlelight and starlight. But for now, just rest and listen. The story begins on a night when the castle had already tucked itself into sleep. Inside, the long stone corridors were quiet, lit only by floating torches dimmed to a golden flicker. The portraits had stopped moving, their frames bathed in stillness. In the distance, the bells had rung once, softly, the signal that midnight had come and gone. Outside, the air was crisp and still. The moon, nearly full, bathed the grounds in silver, casting long shadows across the lawn. Down by the edge of the castle's gardens stood the greenhouses, domed glass structures glowing faintly from within, like oversized lanterns forgotten in the grass. One of them, Greenhouse 3, had its door ever so slightly ajar. A curl of warm, fragrant air drifted out from the crack, filled with the scent of fresh earth, mint leaves, and something faintly sweet, like honeysuckle in bloom. And it was here, in this forgotten moment between night and morning, that something old, gentle, and entirely unexpected began to stir among the vines. So come along now, quietly. The plants are still awake, the soil is whispering, and if you listen closely, you just might hear something blooming. The greenhouse was quiet, but not an empty. Inside, under the glass dome, streaked with moonlight and mist, a single lamp floated above the workbench, glowing softly like a hovering firefly. Beneath it stood Neville Longbottom, wrapped in a thick brown cloak and wearing slightly crooked earmuffs that he'd forgotten to remove after a late-night herbology session. His cheeks were pink from the cold, but his eyes, soft and curious, were fixed on a small plant resting in a terracotta pot in front of him. Neville had always loved the greenhouses. Long before he'd become confident with wands or spells, he'd found a kind of quiet magic in soil, seeds, and the tender unfolding of petals. Plants, after all, didn't rush. They didn't judge. They simply grew, slowly, faithfully, in their own time. And on nights like this, when most of the castle slept, Neville often found himself drawn back here, where the world moved just a little more gently. The plant in front of him tonight was one he'd been caring for over the last few weeks, a rare, twilight-blooming variety of Silencia noctiflora, known for opening its petals only under the glow of starlight. Professor Sprout had told him it hadn't bloomed in years. "It needs trust," she had said with a smile, handing him the pot. "Some plants prefer the quiet kind of magic, the kind that doesn't come from a wand." Neville had nodded, understanding completely. He wasn't alone tonight, though. Sitting cross-legged nearby on an overturned bucket was Luna Lovegood, her wand gently illuminating the pages of a folded Herbology journal. She hummed softly to herself, occasionally tilting her head at the vines above her like she was trying to hear what they were saying. Her hair shimmered like moonlight, and around her neck hung a string of tiny glass beads that jingled faintly when she moved. "I think the venomous tentacula near the door winked at me," Luna said dreamily, looking up from her page. Neville smiled. "It probably did. I've been giving it extra dragon dung compost. Makes them feel appreciated." Luna nodded thoughtfully. "Plants like compliments too, you know, even the dangerous ones." Together they shared the kind of easy silence only true friends know, the kind that doesn't need to be filled with chatter to be full. The warm air of the greenhouse carried a faint citrusy scent from a nearby bundle of flutterleaf, and somewhere overhead, the enchanted ventilation charm sighed like a sleeping breath. Outside, the wind brushed gently against the glass panes, and beyond that, the vast grounds of Hogwarts stretched into the quiet dark. In this quiet cocoon of warmth and earth, two students lingered in the soft edge of midnight, one with soil on his hands, the other with stars in her eyes. And in the space between them, silent and unbloomed, sat a little plant that was about to speak. The greenhouse was quiet, but not an empty. Inside, under the glass dome, streaked with moonlight and mist, a single lamp floated above the workbench, glowing softly like a hovering firefly. Beneath it stood Neville Longbottom, wrapped in a thick brown cloak and wearing slightly crooked earmuffs that he'd forgotten to remove after a late-night herbology session. His cheeks were pink from the cold, but his eyes, soft and curious, were fixed on a small plant resting in a terracotta pot in front of him. Neville had always loved the greenhouses. Long before he'd become confident with wands or spells, he'd found a kind of quiet magic in soil, seeds, and the tender unfolding of petals. Plants, after all, didn't rush. They didn't judge. They simply grew, slowly, faithfully, in their own time. And on nights like this, when most of the castle slept, Neville often found himself drawn back here, where the world moved just a little more gently. The plant in front of him tonight was one he'd been caring for over the last few weeks, a rare, twilight-blooming variety of Silencia noctiflora, known for opening its petals only under the glow of starlight. Professor Sprout had told him it hadn't bloomed in years. "It needs trust," she had said with a smile, handing him the pot. "Some plants prefer the quiet kind of magic, the kind that doesn't come from a wand." Neville had nodded, understanding completely. He wasn't alone tonight, though. Sitting cross-legged nearby on an overturned bucket was Luna Lovegood, her wand gently illuminating the pages of a folded Herbology journal. She hummed softly to herself, occasionally tilting her head at the vines above her like she was trying to hear what they were saying. Her hair shimmered like moonlight, and around her neck hung a string of tiny glass beads that jingled faintly when she moved. "I think the venomous tentacula near the door winked at me," Luna said dreamily, looking up from her page. Neville smiled. "It probably did. I've been giving it extra dragon dung compost. Makes them feel appreciated." Luna nodded thoughtfully. "Plants like compliments too, you know, even the dangerous ones." Together, they shared the kind of easy silence only true friends know, the kind that doesn't need to be filled with chatter to be full. The warm air of the greenhouse carried a faint citrusy scent from a nearby bundle of flutterleaf, and somewhere overhead, the enchanted ventilation charm sighed like a sleeping breath. Outside, the wind brushed gently against the glass panes, and beyond that, the vast grounds of Hogwarts stretched into the quiet dark. In this quiet cocoon of warmth and earth, two students lingered in the soft edge of midnight, one with soil on his hands, the other with stars in her eyes. And in the space between them, silent and unbloomed, sat a little plant that was about to speak. Luna slid off her bucket and knelt beside him, her gaze fixed on the bud. The petals unfurled slowly, layer by layer. Each one shimmered faintly with a pearly glow, catching the light of the lamp and reflecting it like moonlight on water. As the blossom opened fully, a faint melodic hum began to rise, not from the lamp, not from the air, but from the plant itself. It was singing, or something close to it. The sound was soft, like a lullaby remembered from long ago. It didn't have words. It didn't need them. It was the sound of something ancient and kind, something that had waited patiently for the right moment to be heard. Neville and Luna stared in silence, and then the flower spoke. It didn't move its petals, its stem didn't sway, but the voice came, quiet, inside their minds, not invasive, not loud, just there, like a thought that didn't belong to them. "Thank you." Neville blinked, startled, and looked at Luna, who simply smiled. "You heard it too," he whispered. Luna nodded. "It's very polite." The voice came again, clearer this time, still soft, still calm. "Long have I slept beneath the warmth of this place. You have been gentle, you have been kind, so I have awakened." Neville swallowed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Are you a magical plant, or something more?" There was a pause, then, "I am memory, a gift of the earth, a seed of something forgotten." Luna's eyes sparkled. "A seed of what?" "A promise." The blossom pulsed gently, its glow rippling outward in faint waves that danced over the soil. Neville leaned closer. "A promise of what?" "Of listening, of stillness, of stories not yet told." The floating lamp above them flickered, and for a brief moment, the light within the greenhouse shifted, dimming slightly, as if the walls themselves had leaned in to hear. Neville and Luna sat beside the table, no longer questioning, just listening. The plant, or whatever it truly was, continued to hum softly, its petals quivering with every note. Then, The voice returned once more, quieter now. There are things beneath this school that even magic has forgotten. I have watched the roots stretch far below. I have felt the heartbeat of stone. There is a chamber beneath chambers where words were once whispered into soil. Neville frowned gently. What do you want us to do? The flower was silent for a long moment. Nothing, except remember. The old magic is not spells. It is kindness, curiosity, care. You have shown all three. That is enough. And just like that, the petals began to close. Not sharply, not in fear, but slowly, like the end of a song. Neville reached out again, brushing the tip of one leaf with his fingers. Will you bloom again? When the world is quiet and someone chooses to listen. The flower closed completely, folding in on itself like a lullaby curling back into silence. The humming stopped, the glow faded, the greenhouse was still once more. Luna let out a breath. That was lovely. Neville stared at the now sleeping plant, heart full. I didn't even know plants could talk. They usually don't, Luna said, standing and brushing off her cloak. But I think this one just wanted to be heard. It had waited a long time. They sat in silence a little while longer, the quiet of the greenhouse wrapping around them like a woolen blanket. Outside, the wind had picked up, brushing across the glass panes with a sleepy hush. Neville finally stood, stretching slowly. Should we tell Professor Sprout? Luna tilted her head. Maybe someday, but for now, I think it's a secret between us and the roots. Neville smiled. Yeah, that sounds right. As they stepped out of the greenhouse and back into the cool night air, the door gently closed behind them, not with a click, but with a soft shh, like the sound of a page turning in a book no longer being read. Above them, the stars glowed faintly, and Hogwarts loomed in the distance, tall, protective, ancient. And below, something was stirring, but not with danger, with memory, with magic older than wands, and with a single silent promise waiting to bloom again. The greenhouse door eased shut behind them, but Neville and Luna didn't rush back toward the castle. The night was still, the sky clear, and the moon above bathed the gardens in a soft silver light. There was something about what had just happened, the whispered voice of the plant, its memory-like presence, that clung gently to the air around them. Neither wanted to break it. They walked slowly, their footsteps quiet over the stone path that curved between the herb beds and pumpkin patches. Somewhere in the distance, the soft hoot of an owl echoed from the treetops. The castle stood ahead, glowing with a few scattered windows still lit, like warm eyes watching over the grounds. I wonder, Luna said softly, if other plants have things to say too. Maybe they all remember things we've forgotten. Neville thought for a moment. Maybe we've just stopped listening. They reached a small stone bench beside Greenhouse 4 and sat down without a word. The breeze moved through the hedges, rustling leaves in a way that didn't sound like randomness, more like murmurs, as if the wind was carrying whispers from one vine to another, leaf to leaf. Luna tilted her head. Do you feel that? Neville looked around. Feel what? She closed her eyes. There's something underneath. He frowned gently, following her gaze toward the ground. The stone path they sat on was ordinary enough, but now that she'd said it, Neville did feel most something. Not a movement exactly, but a sense of warmth beneath the earth, as if something far below was stirring. He stood and stepped onto the grass beside the path, kneeling down. He pressed his palm to the soil, warm, unnaturally warm, not hot, not threatening, just alive. Neville glanced at Luna. There's something under us, not close to the surface, much deeper. Luna stood beside him, brushing her fingers across a patch of low-growing star clover. The tiny white flowers fluttered softly under her touch, and then, quite suddenly, one of the flowers pulsed with faint light. Not bright, not sudden, just enough to notice. More followed, one by one, soft white glows flickering gently across the flower beds. It was as if the earth itself had started to breathe light. Neville stepped back. It's spreading. The glowing moved outward in slow ripples, curling through the garden like moonlit waves. The flowers weren't changing shape or growing, they were illuminating from within. A path began to form, a gentle trail of glowing clover weaving away from the greenhouses and down past the edge of the garden toward the far corner of the grounds. Luna's voice was a whisper. It's showing us something. They followed. The trail led them down a slope lined with old trees, their branches stretched out like tired arms resting after centuries of standing watch. The glow guided them to a low stone wall, half covered in ivy. Just beyond it, nestled between tangled roots and moss-covered stones, was something Neville had never noticed before. A hatch, circular, made of old brass and built into the ground. Most of it was hidden by dirt and vines, but now, touched by the gentle light of the star clover, faint runes began to appear across its surface. Old magic, not the kind found in textbooks or spell charts. This was the older kind, runes etched by hand, aged by centuries. Neville knelt and brushed the soil away carefully. The hatch hummed softly under his touch, as though recognizing him. A small indent in the center held the shape of a hand. Without hesitation, he placed his palm over it. For a moment, nothing. Then, a click, soft and low, like a lock that had waited too long to open. The hatch creaked open on ancient hinges, revealing a narrow staircase carved into the earth, spiraling downward into soft golden light. Luna smiled. Well, that's not something you see every day. Neville swallowed gently. Should we go? She nodded. If it brought us here, it must think we're ready. They descended slowly, the stairwell lit by softly glowing moss lining the walls. The deeper they went, the warmer the air became, not humid like the greenhouses, but rich, like deep forest air mingled with the scent of old parchment and rain-soaked wood. At the bottom, the passage opened into a small underground chamber, round, domed, and lined with roots that twisted together like braids. In the center stood a raised circle of stone, and upon it, a second plant. This one was taller than the Silencia noctiflora, with long, sweeping leaves and a single central stalk that shimmered with an iridescent glow. It looked like it had grown from the floor itself. No pot, no soil around it. Just a smooth rise of earth where it stood, as if the chamber had shaped itself around the plant's presence. The air here was still, deeply quiet, yet it didn't feel lonely. Luna stepped forward. This is the heart of something. Neville moved closer, careful not to disturb the roots curling through the walls. The plant's leaves shimmered, and a soft sound began to fill the chamber. Not words, not music, but somewhere in between. A vibration that resonated not just in their ears, but in their bones, in their memories. Images filled Neville's mind, not visions like dreams, but impressions. Hogwarts, centuries ago. Students kneeling beside ancient saplings. A young witch with dark braids whispering to the ground, her hands glowing as she pressed her palms to the soil. A teacher drawing runes in the earth with a wand made from twisted yew. Spells cast not with power, but with patience. Luna gasped softly beside him. This is old magic, plant magic, magic rooted in listening. Neville looked at the plant, his heart strangely full. It's been down here, waiting. And the plant replied, not with speech, but with light. Its central stalk bloomed, releasing a soft wave of color that washed over the chamber walls. The roots responded, glowing in a rhythm, as if the entire room was exhaling together. The message was clear. The world had forgotten this place, but not lost it. It was still here, asleep beneath the castle, holding the memories of those who once treated magic like a conversation, not a command. Neville knelt slowly. He didn't cast a spell. He didn't speak. He simply reached out and placed one hand gently on the rise of earth where the plant stood. The glow pulsed once more, and then it settled as if satisfied. They stayed there a while, saying nothing, just being still, in a place where the earth remembered everything. Eventually, the plant folded gently into itself, dimming its glow, not disappearing, simply returning to rest. Neville stood. We should go. Luna nodded. It knows we'll remember. And as they climbed back up the winding stairs, the moss along the walls dimmed behind them, returning the chamber to its quiet sleep. The hatch above slid closed with a soft sigh, and the last of the star clover lights flickered out, their message delivered, their task complete. Back on the grass, the night had grown even quieter. Neville looked toward the castle. I think we were meant to find it. Luna looked up at the sky. It found us because we were gentle. That kind of magic only listens to gentle hearts. They walked slowly back to the greenhouses, the weight of discovery balanced by the warmth of understanding. And behind them, beneath root and stone, the earth settled once more. Content. The warmth of the underground chamber lingered in Neville's chest long after the hatch had closed behind them. The glow of the star clover trail had faded, but the memory of what they'd seen and felt, the ancient plant, the wordless hum of roots carrying old magic, clung softly to the air around them. Neville and Luna walked in silence, side by side, their footsteps light on the grass. Hogwarts stood ahead like a watchful guardian, its towers bathed in moonlight. Yet neither of them was in a hurry to return. The night still held something, an unseen hush, a quiet invitation to keep listening. As they neared the greenhouses again, Neville slowed. He glanced toward Greenhouse 3, where the Silencia noctiflora had first whispered its thank you. "Do you feel like we've only just begun?" he asked quietly. Luna nodded, eyes fixed on the glass dome. "I think the plant was just the beginning of the message. It opened a doorway." They stepped inside, the gentle warmth greeting them once again, wrapping around their shoulders like a familiar cloak. The lamp above the workbench still floated, its light dimmer now, as if resting. The little plant sat in its pot just as they had left it, closed, peaceful. Neville approached and placed a hand beside the pot, not touching it this time, but simply letting it feel his presence. "Thank you," he said softly, and then, ever so faintly, the plant responded, not with light or speech, but with a single shift, a leaf curling ever so slightly in his direction, as if acknowledging the words. Neville smiled, then turned to Luna. "Do you think the castle itself is connected to all this?" Luna tilted her head. "Not just the castle, the land, the roots, the foundations beneath everything. It's all connected, like one enormous plant with invisible vines." Her words settled into the air like petals floating to the floor, strange at first, but slowly blooming into something that made perfect sense. Neville felt a pull again, not strong, not urgent, but unmistakable, a quiet suggestion, as if the earth still had more to share. "There's something else," he whispered. This time, they didn't leave the greenhouse by the front door. Instead, they followed a path around the back, a shaded walkway often used for hauling soil and compost barrels during planting season. The path curved behind the tool shed and led into a small grove of trees most students never bothered with. It was there, just beyond the last row of elder saplings, that Neville stopped. There was something in the air here, not a sound, but a feeling. He crouched near the roots of the tallest tree. Luna watched quietly as he brushed aside the leaves and soft moss at its base. A set of stones, small, round, and perfectly arranged in a spiral, a sigil. Neville touched the center stone. It was warm. The spiral glowed, just faintly, revealing more runes between the stones, hidden beneath dirt and time. The glowing ring pulsed once, and then something shifted. Not beneath them this time, but above. They looked up. The trees, tall and still only a moment before, began to shimmer. Their branches moved slowly, not from wind, but from something older, deeper. The leaves began to rustle in a pattern, like a message written in sound. Then, between two of the trunks, a shimmer appeared, like a curtain of starlight drawn across the air. Luna gasped softly. "It's a doorway." Indeed, the shimmer coalesced into an arch, not made of stone or wood, but woven light and soft sound. It didn't hum like a spell. It pulsed gently, like breath. Without a word, they stepped through. On the other side was not the Hogwarts they knew. It wasn't even a room. It was a grove, very old and impossibly quiet. Tall trees arched overhead, their canopies laced with glowing vines. The air smelled of deep forest and old parchment. But it wasn't just a forest. In the center of the grove was a raised stone platform, circular and wide, surrounded by softly glowing mushrooms and low-sitting herbs. Atop the platform was a wide basin, stone-carved, filled with earth. And within that earth, growing slowly, was a single green sprout, no more than a few inches tall. Neville approached carefully. The sprout glowed faintly, like a newborn thought. As he reached out, it leaned gently toward him. "What is it?" he whispered. Luna knelt beside it. "A beginning." The grove responded. Around them, the trees seemed to lean in closer. The air changed, not growing colder or warmer, but more aware, the way a room feels just before someone speaks. And then the basin glowed. The earth around the sprout shimmered, and images began to rise in the air, soft like fog, yet clear like memory. An old wizard in green robes, kneeling at the basin, whispering to the soil. Children gathered around, each with a seed in their palm, placing it into the basin, hands glowing, no wands, just hands and heart and intention, and then silence. The grove faded, and the shimmer vanished, returning them to the night behind the greenhouses. Neville stared at the spot where the spiral of stones had been. It was gone, as if the door had only opened once, for them. Luna breathed softly. That was a memory garden. He nodded slowly, and we were meant to witness it. The rest of the walk back to the castle was wordless. The wind had quieted. The stars blinked gently overhead. Even the usual sounds of the lake, the soft lap of water, the croak of frogs, seemed to pause, giving space to what had just passed. Back in Gryffindor Tower, Neville sat for a long time by the window before returning to bed. He looked out toward the greenhouses, just barely visible beyond the courtyard, and placed a small stone on the windowsill. Smooth, round, and quiet. A reminder, not of something lost, but of something still growing somewhere beneath the earth, in roots, in seeds, in soft-spoken vines. Magic was still listening. The next morning arrived softly at Hogwarts. Pale sunlight filtered through the dormitory windows, and the castle's familiar hum returned. Muffled footsteps in the corridors, the clinking of teacups in the great hall, owls fluttering toward breakfast tables. But for Neville and Luna, everything now felt as subtly altered, like the air had shifted just slightly, like something invisible was now blooming behind the walls. Neville stirred his tea slowly, seated at the far end of the Gryffindor table. He wasn't in a rush to eat, and his mind wasn't on toast or pumpkin juice. It was on the sprout, that tiny, glowing sprout growing in the middle of the underground memory grove, the one he could still see in his thoughts even now. Across the hall, Luna sat with a few Ravenclaws, absently stirring milk into her porridge, with a dreamy smile on her face. She looked up once and caught Neville's gaze. A soft nod passed between them. They didn't need words. They both knew it hadn't ended yet. Later that afternoon, when classes had settled and most students scattered for free time, Neville found himself walking down the long path behind the greenhouses again. Not because anything called him, but because he wanted to listen. He paused near the elder saplings, the place where the spiral of stones had appeared the night before. The grove and its basin were no longer visible. No glowing trail led the way. The earth looked undisturbed, the moss and leaves soft beneath his feet. But that same feeling lingered, the gentle tug of curiosity, the kind that didn't shout, but whispered softly against the skin. This time, Neville knelt. He didn't try to open a hidden door. He didn't speak a spell. He simply pressed his palm to the moss and closed his eyes. The earth was cool and quiet and waiting. And so, he made a choice. He opened his satchel and removed a tiny cutting he had taken weeks ago, a piece of flutterleaf, known for its resilience and calm growing nature. He dug a small hollow into the soil, pressed the cutting inside, and patted it closed. "This is for you," he whispered, "not to take, just to give." He stayed there a while, breathing slowly, his other hand gently brushing the earth beside the new planting. The roots would find one another, he thought. The magic would recognize the offering. No need for grandeur, only care. Not far away, Luna stood beneath a tree, watching. In her hands was a folded piece of parchment, the journal entries she had written after the bloom first spoke. She had added sketches now, the underground basin, the runes, the memory images in the air. On the last page, in soft ink, she had written just one line: "Magic listens to those who listen back." As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the two met again in the greenhouse, where the Silencia noctiflora now sat quietly in full bloom, its petals glowing with a soft pulse every few minutes. The bloom didn't speak again, but it didn't need to. Its presence filled the space like a memory that didn't fade. Neville walked past it and stopped at the workbench, where an old wooden box had been sitting for weeks, unopened. It had been a gift from Professor Sprout, a collection of rare magical seeds she had promised were not yet ready to plant. He lifted the lid gently. Inside, nestled in silk, were 5 seeds. Each looked different. One was shaped like a teardrop, another like a curled feather, one shimmered like moonstone, and 2 were so dark they seemed to absorb the light. Luna joined him, peering over the edge of the box. "They look like they remember something." Neville smiled. "Maybe they do." They spent the next hour reading through the notes tucked beneath the box's lid, handwritten observations from Professor Sprout herself. None of the seeds had bloomed under normal conditions. Some had been dormant for decades, but Sprout had left one sentence at the bottom of the parchment in flowing green ink. "Some seeds need magic, some need time, and a few need nothing more than kindness." Neville looked to Luna. "What if we planted one in the grove?" Luna nodded. "It might be why we were shown it." That evening, as the castle lights dimmed and the sky deepened into a soft blanket of twilight, Neville and Luna walked once more to the Elder Grove, this time not as seekers, but as gardeners. There was no glowing path, no enchanted archway. But when Neville knelt beside the moss once more and pressed one of the shimmering seeds into the soil, something shifted, not around them, but within. A sense of welcome, a feeling of recognition. Luna knelt beside him and placed both hands over the fresh earth. Together, they waited. The stars blinked above them, and the wind carried no message, but the ground beneath them was warm, and the sprout they had seen in the memory grove bloomed again, not in sight, but in their hearts. And in that stillness, they made another quiet choice, to tend to the magic that didn't ask to be wielded, but simply remembered. The next morning arrived with soft sunlight spilling across the castle grounds, lighting up the dew-dusted greenhouses in a golden haze. Classes resumed as they always did, the corridors filled with footsteps, and the occasional echo of laughter rang beneath the high arches. But for Neville and Luna, the rhythm of the day moved around them like a familiar tune played in the distance, present, yet not where their attention rested. Something within them had shifted, something had bloomed. Neville sat in the greenhouse after his morning class, the Silencia noctiflora now resting with its petals closed in gentle sleep. Its bloom, once rare and uncertain, had returned to rest, but it glowed faintly still, a reminder that it had not been a dream. He traced a finger along the edge of the workbench, lost in thought, until Luna entered, not with her usual whimsical stride, but slower, more thoughtful. She held a folded piece of parchment and a very old book wrapped in deep green cloth. "I found this in the restricted section," she said gently. "Professor Sprout gave me special permission after I mentioned what we'd seen." She unwrapped the cloth and opened the book to a page near the center. The paper was yellowed and soft, and the ink had faded, but the drawing was clear, a basin set into the earth, surrounded by trees, with a single glowing sprout rising from its center. Neville leaned in. "That's it, the memory grove." Luna nodded. "The book calls it the Root Spring Sanctuary. It was created long ago, even before the founders completed the castle, a hidden space for the oldest forms of magic, the kind that listens, not commands." Neville read the faded script below the image, planted by the first caretakers, guarded by silence, nourished by hearts that remember. He looked up. Caretakers? Luna turned the page to reveal another drawing, a group of students tending to the sanctuary, kneeling, planting, simply being present. None of them carried wands. They worked with their hands. Their gestures were soft, reverent. "This was part of Hogwarts once," Luna whispered, "before dueling halls and moving staircases, before spells filled the air. There was this, a place for gentle magic, for growing." Neville sat back, letting the realization wash over him. They hadn't discovered something new. They had reawakened something forgotten. "The plant," he said quietly, "the one that spoke. It must have remembered all of this. It waited, tucked in a pot, resting in this greenhouse until someone listened." Luna looked toward the little plant, still resting beside the window. It was the last whisper of a bigger story. A memory, waiting to be remembered. The insight fell over them like a gentle rain, not startling, but refreshing, calming. They hadn't been chosen because they were the most skilled or the most powerful. They were chosen because they were gentle, because they had arrived without asking for anything, because they had listened. Neville leaned forward again, rereading the words in the book. "Nourished by hearts that remember." All around Hogwarts, magic hummed constantly. Portraits spoke, staircases turned, owls soared through shifting arches. But here, in this quiet moment, Neville began to understand there was another kind of magic running beneath it all, one that didn't announce itself, one that waited for silence. He stood up slowly. We need to keep it alive. Luna tilted her head. The sanctuary. He nodded. And the memory of it. The feeling of it. We need to tend to it like they did. Let it grow again. Luna smiled. Not to tell the world, but to remember it exists. Neville walked over to the small table where he had placed the remaining magical seeds. He looked down at them, resting quietly in their velvet lining. Then, with careful fingers, he selected the smallest one, the moonstone seed. I think this one's next. Luna reached out and gently closed his hand around it. We'll plant it together. That night, under a sky stitched with stars, they returned once more to the Elder Grove, behind the greenhouses. The spiral of stones had not reappeared, but the air still welcomed them. The moss was soft beneath their feet, the soil warm and open. They planted the seed in silence. No spells, no ceremony, only care. As they pressed the earth down, a soft shimmer rose, just briefly, over the patch. The air tingled with a quiet warmth, and the leaves above them rustled in approval. And in that moment, both of them knew the sanctuary had accepted the offering. It wasn't grand, it wasn't loud, but something deep had shifted again. Something had rooted, and now it would grow. The days that followed moved with quiet rhythm, like the slow turning of a page. The halls of Hogwarts bustled as usual, yet for Neville and Luna, the castle felt softer somehow, as though it, too, was aware of what now stirred in the roots beneath its stone foundations. In the greenhouses, everything continued to grow as it always had. Mandrakes stretched beneath their earthen blankets, flutterleaf shimmered in gentle breeze, and the venomous tentacula continued to grumble softly when watered too early. But in Greenhouse 3, where the Silencia noctiflora sat perched beside the window, a calm kind of reverence had taken hold. The little plant had not spoken again, nor had it bloomed anew, but it no longer needed to. Its message had been planted, not just in soil, but in memory. Every day, Neville visited the spot behind the greenhouses where the memory grove had once opened for them. He brought simple things, compost, clippings of herbs, a gentle brushing of the soil. He never tried to call the magic back. He simply tended to the earth as if it were listening, because he knew, deep down, it was. And Luna, often appearing when the air grew quieter in the afternoons, would sit cross-legged nearby, humming soft tunes, sketching glowing root systems in the air with her wand, or whispering words in languages she said only plants could understand. Neither asked for more, neither needed anything in return. They had chosen to remember. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the towers and cast golden light across the grounds, Professor Sprout found Neville still kneeling by the edge of the grove. She didn't interrupt. She watched him for a while, his hands dusty with soil, his expression peaceful, and then approached slowly. "That patch of earth," she said softly, "has never looked so alive." Neville glanced up, brushing a leaf from his sleeve. "It just needed someone to listen." Sprout smiled warmly, crouching beside him. "Sometimes magic is loud and grand, but sometimes it's quiet and it waits." He nodded, remembering the glow, the shimmer, the hum of that hidden sprout beneath the ground. It's still here, even if we can't see it. Sprout placed a hand on the soil and closed her eyes briefly. Then that means you've done something most witches and wizards forget to do. What's that? He asked. She opened her eyes, voice gentle. You've made peace grow. That night, Neville returned to the common room with dirt still beneath his fingernails and a sense of comfort settled deep in his chest. He sat by the window, watching the stars appear one by one, and smiled as he imagined the seed they had planted, reaching just a little farther down. Below the castle, beneath roots and stone and ancient spells, something was awakening, slowly, patiently, not to be found, but simply to be remembered. And in the quiet of that thought, Hogwarts exhaled with him, soft, safe, still. Later that night, as the castle settled into its quiet rhythm of sleep, portraits dozing in their frames, candles dimming to soft embers, Neville sat alone in the greenhouse, a soft lantern floating above him, casting golden light over the wooden work table. The Silencia noctiflora sat beside him, its petals tucked inward once again, resting. He didn't expect it to speak. He didn't need it to. The hush of the night, the scent of earth, the memory of glowing roots beneath the soil, they were enough. All of it had become part of him now, folded gently into his heart, like a pressed flower between pages. Something to return to, something to care for. Outside, the moon climbed higher, bathing the grounds in silver light. The wind carried the faint rustle of the forbidden forest in the distance, but here, in the glass walls of the greenhouse, everything remained warm and still, peaceful. Somewhere in Ravenclaw Tower, Luna was likely gazing at the same sky, perhaps writing about memory groves or singing softly to her potted Gertie root. She would smile in that dreamy way of hers, knowing, as Neville did, that the real magic didn't need to be shared to be real. It only needed to be kept alive, gently. Neville leaned back in his chair, hands folded in his lap, heart quiet. Tomorrow would bring classes, new spells, laughter in the halls. But tonight belonged to the quiet things, to plants that remember, seeds that wait, and soil that hums with old forgotten songs. And as he closed his eyes, the gentle warmth of the greenhouse wrapped around him like a blanket. Magic wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was the whisper of a leaf. Sometimes it was a sprout beneath the earth. And sometimes it was simply a boy breathing slowly in the quiet night, remembering how to listen. So now, dear listener, let your eyes grow heavy, let your breath slow. Somewhere beneath your dreams, something kind is still growing, deep, soft, and patiently. Sleep well, and let the roots remember you kindly.